They say common sense isn't so common. This video is 49 pieces of hard evidence to support that theory. We're about to explore the stories of individuals who faced a problem and chose the one solution that resulted in their own spectacular and profoundly dumb demise. Consider this a crucial public service announcement on how not to become a local legend for all the wrong reasons. 1. A lost phone is a tragedy of modern life. But for one family in China, it became the catalyst for a multi-generational catastrophe. After a man dropped his new phone into a pit toilet, he made the fateful decision to go in after it. He was promptly overcome by the noxious fumes. His mother, seeing her son in peril, jumped in to save him, and met the same fate. This horrifying chain reaction continued, with his father, his wife, and 2 neighbors all descending into the toxic abyss, one after another. 6 people perished in a frantic, suffocating attempt to retrieve a single device, which, in the ultimate insult, was never even recovered. 2. That relentless chirping from a smoke detector can test anyone's sanity. But for one college student, it was a declaration of war. His solution? To bypass ladders and batteries, and instead grab the 2 live wires from the ceiling with his bare hands. As he was being introduced to the concept of electricity in the most direct way possible, his roommate ran in. Instead of cutting the power, this second genius decided the best way to help was to grab his friend, creating a brief but illuminating career as a human conductor. The good news is the annoying beeping stopped. Permanently. 3. There's a fine line between a hobby and a fatal obsession. A gamer in South Korea obliterated that line by playing an online RPG for 50 hours straight, forgoing trivial things like food, water, and sleep. He was on an epic quest for virtual glory, trading his real-world health bar for a digital experience bar. He may have reached the highest level and acquired legendary loot, but his own biological hardware couldn't handle the strain. He suffered a massive cardiac arrest, learning the hard way that in the game of life there's no respawn, no extra lives, and the final game over is terrifyingly permanent. 4. Slow service at a drive-thru is annoying. For one man in Britain, it was an injustice that demanded immediate, furious confrontation. He flung his door open and stormed toward the window to yell at the staff, but in his blind rage, he overlooked a crucial detail: putting his car in park. As he was delivering a passionate speech on customer service, his own vehicle slowly rolled forward and pinned him against the building. He was ultimately taken out not by an employee, but by his own car, which delivered its own brand of instant, karmic service. 5. Competitive eating is a sport of sheer willpower and questionable life choices. A contestant in a sausage-eating contest was proving his dominance, powering through his 43rd sausage when he tragically choked. Amid the stunned silence of the crowd, you just know someone turned to their friend and whispered, "Okay, but does that one still count for his score?" He died a champion of processed meat, a true martyr to the cause of gluttony, leaving behind a legacy that was both impressive and profoundly sad. He won the battle, but the sausage won the war. 6. When faced with a blocked toilet, most people reach for a plunger. One man reached for a gallon of gasoline and a match. He decided that the best way to clear a simple clog was with a catastrophic fuel-air explosion. The result was technically a success. The clog was gone. Unfortunately, so was the toilet, the bathroom walls, and the man himself, who was launched on a non-stop one-way trip through what used to be his ceiling. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest solution isn't to add fire and gasoline to a porcelain bowl. 7. A man named Larry Walters decided to live out his dream of flying, not with a plane, but with a simple lawn chair and 42 weather balloons. His invention actually worked, lifting him to an altitude of over 11,000 feet, directly into the flight path of LAX. The only problem was his descent plan, which consisted entirely of a pellet gun to pop the balloons. After shooting one, the chair tilted violently, and Larry slid out, discovering that the laws of gravity are significantly less forgiving than the rules of amateur aviation. He went up a legend and came down as a cautionary tale. 8. In the wild lands of Wyoming, a hunter decided to test his skills against a 2,000-pound bison. His weapon of choice? A bow and arrow, from a mere 20 yards away. He managed to land a shot, which did little more than enrage the furry locomotive. The arrow acted less like a weapon and more like a start button for a very angry, very fast bulldozer. The bison closed the 20-yard gap in seconds and proceeded to give the hunter a very personal, hands-on, and ultimately final lecture on the food chain and the importance of choosing appropriate weaponry. 9. In an age where everything is for the gram, some people will risk it all for the perfect shot. During a massive storm, one man ignored every single warning sign, barrier, and basic survival instinct to capture an image of a huge wave crashing against a pier. And he got it. It was probably breathtaking. But the ocean, apparently not a fan of being used for clout, immediately sent a follow-up wave, bigger and angrier than the first. It swept him, his camera, and his final, unposted masterpiece out to sea, proving that nature always gets the last shot. 10. We've all felt the rage of a vending machine stealing our last dollar. But while most of us just mutter a curse and walk away, one man in Washington decided to escalate the situation with a pipe bomb. His plan to liberate a stolen soda worked flawlessly. The machine exploded spectacularly. He stepped out from behind cover to claim his fizzy prize, only to be immediately and fatally flattened by the 300-pound steel door, which had just completed its brief flight and was now returning to Earth. The machine got its revenge and the soda remained unvended. 11. A man noticed his car was leaking gasoline. Needing a better look under the chassis to diagnose the problem, he reached for a tool. Not a flashlight, not a phone, but a cigarette lighter. The cloud of gasoline vapor that had been patiently pooling under the car was thrilled to finally meet a naked flame. The ensuing explosion instantly confirmed the location of the leak and simultaneously solved all of the man's future automotive problems in the most permanent way imaginable. His diagnosis was brief but 100% accurate. 12. Victory was just moments away for a French cyclist in the Tour de France. He was so far ahead of the competition that he decided to start his celebration lap a little early. He took both hands off the handlebars, blowing kisses and waving to the adoring crowd, completely absorbed in his own impending glory. Unfortunately, he failed to notice the sharp turn ahead, or the large parked media van that was there specifically to film his triumphant win. He plowed directly into it, crossing a very different kind of finish line than he'd intended. 13. On a high-rise construction site, safety regulations are written in blood. One worker, however, saw them as mere suggestions. Needing just a little extra reach for a quick job, he decided a safety harness was too much trouble. Instead, he confidently placed an empty 5-gallon bucket upside down and stood on it. The bucket, being a bucket and not a stable platform, immediately betrayed him. His career in construction and his tenure among the living ended abruptly 30 stories below. In a way, it was the quickest job he ever completed. 14. To prove the strength of the windows in his high-rise office, a corporate lawyer in Toronto enjoyed showing visitors how he could bounce his entire body off the glass, 24 stories up. He had done this stunt dozens of times. But one day, in front of a group of prospective students, he threw himself against the window one last time. The glass didn't break. The entire window frame, however, popped out of the building, sending him on a very brief, unscheduled journey to the courtyard below. 15. At a medieval fair, a man fully decked out in authentic, heavy plate armor got into a heated argument near the castle's decorative moat. To dramatically prove a point about his supposed invincibility, he leaped onto a rickety wooden railing for emphasis. The railing, unimpressed by his theatrics, snapped. He plunged into 6 feet of water, where he immediately discovered that 100 pounds of steel is not conducive to floating. His final battle was not against a dragon, but against the simple, undefeated laws of buoyancy. 16. After robbing a convenience store, a Florida man had a moment of paranoid genius. He worried the stolen cash might have hidden tracking devices. His high-tech solution: to cleanse the money by blasting it in his microwave. He forgot, however, that modern US currency contains a metallic security strip. The appliance instantly turned into a miniature lightning storm, igniting the cash and his apartment with it. He wasn't brought down by the police, but by the toxic smoke of his own smoldering loot in a deeply flawed money laundering scheme. 17. An Irish farmer, fed up with his particularly belligerent bull, devised a plan rooted in pure, unadulterated ego. He believed he could assert his dominance not with a fence or a prod, but with an intense, soul-piercing stare-down. He strode confidently into the field, locked eyes with the one-ton beast, and held his ground. The bull, accepting this non-verbal challenge, proceeded to demonstrate that a stare has never stopped a freight train of muscle and fury. The farmer learned a valuable and very final lesson in animal psychology. 18. To prove to his friends that his pet python was just a misunderstood, gentle giant, a man let the snake begin to constrict around his neck. "See?" he likely gurgled. "He's just giving me a hug." The python, however, was just doing what millions of years of instinct had trained it to do, and perhaps got a little too enthusiastic in its embrace. The man's demonstration of interspecies trust quickly turned into a fatal, one-sided lesson in the mechanics of strangulation, proving that a predator is always a predator. 19. After being fired, a disgruntled office worker concocted a truly vile plan for revenge. He was going to defecate in the company water cooler. To get the proper angle over the large container, he precariously balanced himself on his rolling desk chair. The chair, obeying the laws of physics rather than the man's quest for vengeance, promptly rolled out from under him. He fell, hit his head, and his grand act of defiance was cut short. One can only imagine the sheer confusion of the person who eventually discovered that bizarre and tragic scene. 20. In the middle of a New York City traffic jam, one driver decided the rules of civilization no longer applied to him. He was simply too important to wait. With a blast of his horn and a sense of entitlement, he swerved his car onto the crowded sidewalk to bypass the lesser mortals stuck in traffic. He successfully passed maybe 3 cars before having a very sudden and aggressive meeting with a fire hydrant. The initial crash was bad, but the real show started when the hydrant sheared off. A geyser of high-pressure water erupted, flipping his car onto its roof and trapping him inside. He beat the traffic, but was ultimately defeated by municipal plumbing. 21. A cancelled flight is a modern-day tragedy, but one Canadian man's protest went far beyond a strongly worded tweet. He decided to make his point by climbing onto the airport baggage carousel. He was promptly whisked behind the rubber curtains and into the vast, automated labyrinth of the baggage handling system. While he certainly didn't make his intended flight, he did embark on a final, unscheduled tour of the airport's mechanical guts. His luggage, one assumes, eventually made it to its destination, blissfully unaware of its owner's bizarre final journey. 22. There's a special kind of joy that comes with a brand new, perfectly sharp chainsaw. One man, buzzing with excitement, was eager to test its power on the nearest piece of wood available. As fate would have it, that piece of wood was the main support beam for his own front porch. The chainsaw, to its credit, performed flawlessly, slicing through the timber with ease. The porch roof, now suddenly and completely unsupported, also performed flawlessly, obeying the laws of gravity with immediate and crushing enthusiasm. 23. Working as a window washer on an 80-story skyscraper in Dubai requires a deep respect for safety equipment. One worker, however, felt his safety line was just getting in the way of his efficiency. He unhooked it for just a second to clean a particularly tricky spot. As if on cue, a sudden gust of wind swept across the face of the building to provide a live-action demonstration of why that's a catastrophically bad idea. His quest for temporary convenience resulted in a very permanent solution to all his future employment concerns. 24. A tourist on a fishing pier spotted a large pelican with a freshly caught fish in its gullet. Seeking a cool, viral video, he decided to poke the multi-pound wild bird with his fishing rod. Startled and annoyed, the pelican took flight, and in the process regurgitated the heavy, slimy fish. The fish plummeted like a scaly missile, striking the man squarely on the head. The impact sent him tumbling off the pier and into the water below. He successfully provoked the bird, and in return, it delivered his final meal via airmail. 25. The sport is called volcano boarding, and it's exactly as terrible an idea as it sounds. One thrill seeker in New Zealand was carving his way down the side of an active volcano at high speed when he hit a patch of loose gravel. This minor error sent him veering off course directly into a geothermal steam vent. The extreme heat and pressure of the vent instantly transformed him from an adrenaline junkie into a perfectly flash-cooked cautionary tale. He went looking for a rush and found a pressure cooker instead. 26. An Italian man watched in horror as his prized Porsche got stuck on a set of train tracks. He smartly jumped out to safety, but as the freight train thundered closer, a terrible calculation occurred in his mind. Was his beautiful car worth more than his life? In a split second of profoundly misplaced priorities, he sprinted back to try and save it. The train, which doesn't care about luxury automobiles, made the final decision for him. It was a spectacular collision that permanently settled the man versus machine debate. 27. A man in Seattle discovered a single, solitary spider in his laundry room. A rational person might have used a shoe or a paper towel. This hero, however, believed in overwhelming force. He fashioned a homemade flamethrower using a can of spray paint and a lighter. And it worked. The spider was instantly incinerated. But in his moment of victory, he overlooked a key scientific principle. Superheating an aerosol can turns it into a grenade. The resulting explosion not only vaporized the laundry room, but also took him with it, ensuring the spider was avenged by the laws of physics. 28. A French performance artist conceived of his masterpiece, an immersive experience he titled A Commentary on Consumption. The piece involved him wrapping himself in pounds of raw meat and lying down in a cage with a dozen hungry vultures. The vultures, apparently also being discerning art critics, gave the installation a rave review, a very interactive, very hands-on review. The artist truly became one with his art, literally consumed by his own creation in the most final performance of his career. 29. Some home improvement projects are ill-advised. Others are actively suicidal. A man in the US decided his front yard was missing a certain something, a 40-foot municipal lamppost. His tool for this ambitious heist was a chainsaw. Yes, a chainsaw against a thick metal pole. Ignoring the volcano of sparks, he finally cut through the base. He stepped back to admire his work, just as the multi-ton steel pole remembered that gravity was still a thing. The prize he so desperately wanted was delivered directly to him, via a fatal, high-velocity impact. 30. In the majestic Arizona desert, one man declared war on a cactus. His weapon of choice against the 20-foot saguaro was a shotgun. After blasting away at its base, he finally succeeded in felling the giant. The massive plant began to teeter and then fall. But in a final slow-motion act of botanical revenge, it tipped directly onto him. Let's be clear, he was outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and ultimately crushed to death by a very, very patient plant. Nature doesn't always need claws and teeth to win. 31. A man in China devised a brilliant plan to steal electricity by tapping directly into a high-voltage power line with a pair of pliers. He felt perfectly safe, of course, because he was wearing a pair of thick rubber boots. What he tragically forgot was that the tall metal ladder he was standing on was a fantastic conductor for a current of "you are about to die." A fact that was demonstrated to him with about 10,000 volts of absolute, electrifying certainty, proving a little knowledge can be a very dangerous thing. 32. A would-be thief decided to siphon some free gasoline from a parked tour bus. Working in the dark, he fumbled for the intake pipe and stuck his hose in. Unfortunately for his taste buds, he had chosen the wrong port. Instead of gasoline, he got a full, horrifying mouthful of raw chemical waste from the onboard toilet. In a violent fit of revulsion, he spat it out, inhaling the toxic fumes and dying almost instantly from the septic shock. It was, without a doubt, a truly crappy way to go. 33. While fleeing from the police, a car thief had the clever idea to hide in a multi-story parking garage. He floored it, racing up the spiral ramp to the top floor where he could lay low. The plan was solid, right up until the part where he forgot that brakes are a necessary component of driving. He crashed straight through the concrete barrier at the top, taking a very direct, gravity-assisted shortcut back down to street level. In his defense, he definitely lost the cops. 34. To capture the ultimate viral video, a tourist in San Francisco decided to skateboard down the city's famously winding Lombard Street. But he didn't just ride it. He decided to luge it, lying flat on his back for maximum velocity. He became a human missile careening down the brick-paved curves, only to realize far too late that the luge position offers precisely zero steering and even less braking. He shot out of the final turn like a cannonball and embedded himself in the side of a passing cable car, creating a video that was probably more popular at the morgue than on TikTok. 35. You would think that a professional hot air balloon pilot would have a firm grasp of the single most important concept of his job: hot air rises. While inflating his balloon on the ground, this particular expert decided he needed to climb the outside of the fabric to fix a rope. The balloon, dutifully obeying the laws of thermodynamics, began to ascend. He found himself 50 feet in the air, clinging desperately to his own massive floating mistake, before his short, impromptu flight was permanently and abruptly grounded. 36. The game of chicken with a freight train is a contest with a 100% predictable outcome. A group of teenagers decided to test this theory, but one of them was determined to be the undisputed champion of terrible ideas. He waited, letting the multi-ton locomotive get closer and closer, planning to jump at the absolute last possible second to prove his courage. Unfortunately, his timing was just a fraction of a second off. The train, which remains undefeated and untied in the history of the game, effortlessly maintained its perfect record. 37. Dehydration in the vast Arizona desert is a swift and serious threat. When rescuers found a man's body just a few hundred yards from his abandoned car, the cause of death was clear. The tragic irony, however, was discovered when they opened the trunk. Inside, they found a full, completely unopened case of bottled water. He had the solution to his fatal problem within arm's reach, but was apparently saving it for what he considered a real emergency. His planning skills were, to put it mildly, fatally flawed. 38. A Kansas man wanted a marriage proposal his girlfriend would never forget. He hired a plane to fly over with a "Marry Me" banner. For the grand finale, he planned to personally light a celebratory fireworks display from the bed of his truck. A single stray spark, however, landed in the open box of industrial-grade explosives right next to him. The proposal instantly went from a romantic question to a very loud, very chaotic, and very final statement. To this day, nobody is entirely sure if she said yes. 39. While cramming for a major exam, a college student decided to wage war on sleep itself. His arsenal consisted of an entire pharmacy's worth of caffeine pills, which he consumed in a desperate attempt to power through the night. The strategy worked, in a way. He took so many that he suffered a fatal caffeine overdose. On the bright side, in his final, hyper-aware moments, he probably absorbed every last piece of information for the test. He just wasn't able to show up to prove it. 40. At the local community pool's Hold Your Breath the Longest competition, there was one clear and dominant winner. He outlasted every other contestant by an astonishing margin, floating silently in the water. The celebration was cut short, however, when the judges realized he hadn't just won the competition. He had passed out from oxygen deprivation and drowned. In a final, bureaucratic insult, he was posthumously disqualified for his performance. 41. One man decided that the best way to celebrate the 4th of July was to use his own head as a mobile launch pad for a powerful firework mortar. His friends, recognizing a viral moment in the making, filmed the entire thing. The fuse was lit, but instead of launching majestically into the night sky, the firework ignited and burrowed directly into his skull. He succeeded in becoming a party legend, just not in the way he had envisioned. His 15 minutes of fame lasted about 3 seconds. 42. Picture a party in a Calgary high-rise. The elevator is slow, but one guest saw a shortcut: the garbage chute. To him, it wasn't a filthy tube of refuse. It was a private VIP express slide to the ground floor. For maximum velocity, he dove in headfirst, embarking on an exhilarating 12-story ride. A pro travel tip, however: always check your destination. His journey ended exactly where you'd expect: in the crushing, unforgiving steel jaws of the building's trash compactor. A truly one-star experience. 43. In a bizarre quest for a moon tan, a California man lay naked on the sloping roof of his house at night and promptly fell asleep. As he slept, he slowly rolled off the edge. He didn't land in soft bushes, but directly onto the decorative, sharp, wrought iron fence spears that lined his neighbor's property below. He tragically succeeded in his goal of becoming one with the night sky, just in a much more permanent and impaled fashion than he had planned. 44. As an act of supreme comedic genius, a college student on a dare swallowed his fraternity's live pet goldfish. The prank was hilarious for about 30 seconds, until the goldfish, fighting for its own life in a bizarre, fleshy prison, swam down the wrong pipe and became firmly lodged in his airway. In a final act of defiance, the fish lost its battle for survival, but it made damn sure to take its tormentor with it, proving that karma sometimes comes with gills. 45. A man in Germany was so fed up with pigeons on his balcony that he built an elaborate cartoon-style trap. A net connected to a heavy anvil, balanced precariously on the railing. When he finally caught a bird, he rushed out gleefully to claim his prize, tripped on his own trigger rope, and pulled the anvil directly down on top of himself. The pigeon flew away. The man did not. 46. Stealing a live lobster from a grocery store tank is a bold crime. Stuffing it down your pants is a catastrophically stupid one. The lobster, understandably upset about its new accommodations, clamped its claw onto the most sensitive part of the thief's anatomy. Overcome with blinding pain, the man shrieked, stumbled backward out of the store's automatic doors, and fell directly into the path of a city bus. 47. An Oklahoma man decided it was time to get rid of a large beehive in his yard. His tool for this delicate operation was not poison or professional, but a baseball bat. He took a mighty swing, shattering the hive into 1,000,000 pieces. In response, a furious cloud of several thousand bees emerged, ready for war. As he turned to flee in a panic, he tripped and fell directly into the buzzing, angry swarm. He successfully removed the hive, and in the process, removed himself from the gene pool. 48. A museum thief had a brilliant plan: swap a priceless ancient vase with a flawless fake. He made his way to the display after hours and successfully made the switch. But in his moment of quiet triumph, perched on his ladder, he did a little victory dance. He slipped, falling directly onto the real priceless vase he had just placed on the floor. It shattered, impaling him with a massive, razor-sharp shard of ancient pottery. He was taken out by the very treasure he had just stolen. 49. A man in rural Russia found his car's engine block was frozen solid in the bitter cold. His solution was not to use a block heater, but to light a small, gentle fire under the oil pan to thaw it out. The gentle fire quickly found the car's fuel lines, and the vehicle exploded in a massive fireball. On the plus side, his problem was solved. The engine was no longer frozen. In fact, there was no longer an engine or a car, or for that matter, a man. All right, let's be honest. Every town has that one local legend about some idiot's spectacular exit that people still talk about. We've shared 49 of them, now you share yours. In the comments, describe the dumbest local legend, death from your hometown. And if this catalog of catastrophe has earned it, show the algorithm some love with a like and subscribe.